to Connect with Christina. Today's special guest is my dear friend, Ross Frazier with Fix Restoration. Hi, Ross.
Hey, how are you?
Fantastic. I'm glad you're finally here.
I am glad to be here.
I'm going to jump right into it. Can you please tell us about mold and how and why it's super important to know about it?
Well, in Arizona, one of the interesting things is that mold is very unexpected because everybody thinks that we have a very dry state and there's no such thing as getting mold in houses. And because of that, even many people don't have mold protection in their insurance for their homes. It happens quite frequently because we have dry air and these windstorms, and they carry the mold spores as they're building the house into the inside of the walls, onto the 2x4s, and when they put the first layers of drywall on the walls, the spores literally stick to all of those surfaces. So what happens is, that is so unexpected, is that along comes a source of water, and I'll give you an example. We were at a place where, because of the rains that happened last January and February, this man and his family had a flat roof on their house, and because of that, the rainstorms kind of caused a leak to start happening in several places on the house, which was unexpected. And because the rains lasted for almost 2 months into the third month, he just didn't recognize it until in his den, the ceiling fell through.
Oh, wow. I hear flat roofs are pretty hard.
They are, simply because if they're not prepared correctly, and this house was built in the 1945-46 area, and because of that, it just wasn't expected.
And so when that caved in, that's when he eventually called you?
He called me to the job, and as we went out, we discovered more than just the problem with the roof. Of course, it had fallen into the den, and as we looked up into his den, his rafters, and the plywood that was covering his roof, it was all covered with black.
Oh my gosh.
And the mold was growing quite rapidly. Now, the lucky thing is that he didn't have any framing on his inside walls. All of his inside walls were actually block.
Okay.
Excuse me. They were block. And so on the walls throughout his entire house was a mastic that had been spread on these block walls. And so as we pulled the test on the mold, we also took samples of the mastic and the ceiling mastic and old drywall and sent it to our laboratories in Texas.
And what was the result?
The result was that they found that the mold was the worst kind, which is called Stachybotrys, and the other mold was Penicillium, which are both very lethal. And you can get very sick from that kind of
I want you to talk about that actually. So why is mold so bad for us, and the certain kinds of mold that you just went over?
Those two, because of the spores, okay? Just imagine yourself in a room with those spores floating in the air. What happens is that you breathe it in, and those spores settle inside your lungs. Well, your lungs are moist, and because of that, then the spores actually start to populate and grow. And what it does is that in doing so, it releases a toxicity that literally, after a while, will kill you. And there's been probably the notable deaths has actually occurred in Hollywood with some of the actors and actresses who died from mold toxicity. Again, it's so unexpected in Arizona.
But it's here. It happens.
But it is here. And the second level that we usually go to, and I'll come back to this in just a second, the second level that I usually go to is that if you're a person that has various lung issues, respiratory issues, one of the questions that I ask the people when we walk into their homes, do you have any respiratory issues? Because if you do, before we really tear into it, we cover all of the rooms, hallways, completely cover the air conditioning, ducting, wherever it's at. We cover it all up. Then we talk to the insurance company, because at the same time, we send all of those samples to the laboratories.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, when we get it back, we, of course, share it with the insurance company and also share with them that you've got one or two members in the house that has respiratory issues, so much so that the doctors are very concerned. And our recommendation to you to avoid risk, liability, is to take them out of the house. Put them in an Airbnb, put them in a hotel. And over the years, we've had dozens of those type of things happen for people. And it's just the safe thing to do. And even though you completely plastic off the section of the house that's affected, it doesn't mean that it's completely safe, especially for those people who have respiratory issues.
Right. And I'll go over that too, as far as the steps you take in your company helping these people out. But can you go over the types of mold again?
Well, there are 4 or 5 different types of mold. But the ones that we're most concerned about, especially the number 1 is Stachybotrys, and the number 2 is Penicillium. When we see those, we take tremendous precautions in the home. We also take precautions ourselves.
Of course. I sure hope so.
Yes, because we don't want that stuff getting on our clothes. We go ahead and suit up into complete plastic suits, as it were, head masks, goggles. You have to take every precaution possible, okay? And when you do that, you can feel comfortable at taking care of the problem and getting rid of it.
Right, because we need you to keep helping these people, so you need to stay healthy. What happens and what's the time frame when people are exposed to mold? Well, a couple of things on that. Like, what are some of your suggestions for people to make sure they're aware of this, to catch it? And I'm curious, like, how long does it take before someone, gets affected by it, where it's too late?
It depends, of course, on the person and their health condition, how quickly it'll affect them. If you are a person with respiratory issues, you'll notice it. The first thing that you notice is the smell.
Okay.
There is an odor that comes from that kind of
Is that
mold.
that mildew odor?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So there is an odor that comes from it because the wall being wet and then the mold. What's very interesting about mold, and I'll share this with you, is it starts on the inside of the wall 90% of the time. But what happens as the water continues to nourish it, it actually goes all the way through the sheetrock to the outside of the sheetrock and grows on that. And that's why you see that black all across your wall. Just imagine that's the inside of your lung. And that's why after a while, you really lose the ability to absorb oxygen in your system. So it doesn't matter after a while, and we'll talk about that in just a second. It doesn't matter after a while. if you are subject to the mold spores, you need not to be in that room, in that area, and you need to block it off completely, especially if you're going to stay in the house while we're in there cleaning it up. Now, in the second level that I was discussing was with mold being that apparent, that available, okay, you need to take precautions as well in the rest of the house. For example, and I hate to say this, but you really don't want to use your air conditioning and heating systems in the home.
Oh my goodness. It's hot.
Yes. You really don't want to. You can, and we recommend that you bring in some portable units, especially here again, if you are somewhat susceptible. But the precautions that we take, and I'll share that, okay? The first thing that we do is obviously we take the samples and get them off to the lab immediately. Right after taking those samples, we don't take it as a guess. We literally seal off the hallways, the rooms, kitchens. We just seal them off from the house completely. If your kitchen is not usable because of where the mold is at, which has happened many times, the kitchen is one of the favorite places for things I call sneaky leaks.
Remember that, guys. Watch out for sneaky leaks.
Because in the kitchen, you have so many valves that are there. You've got your dishwasher, you've got your hot and cold. Sometimes you have the little valve above the stove. So if you've got cooking that's going on, you need additional water in your pots and pans, you have one of those valves. And then in back of the refrigerator, you also have valves. So
that you never really look at unless you're doing a general deep clean. You never know what's back there.
Well, this is what happens. One day, you open up your cabinets because you've got something underneath your kitchen cabinet, and you're just wondering why, in opening it up, you've got that little funny smell, and you happen to look down. And you see black all across the back of the wall of the cabinet. And then you realize for the first time, hey, something is going on. One of the homes that we went to, the water was pouring out of the back side of the wall into the side of the home that nobody goes on. And so what got him curious was he went outside and he was doing some barbecuing, which he had his barbecue pit on the side of the house. He turned around and saw a stream of water coming out of his house. So he called us and said, I want you to see this. We went into the house and opened up his cabinets, and sure enough, on the walls from his stove all the way to the corner, they were all covered in mold.
Oh, boy.
And from his walls all the way over to his sink, covered in mold. When we pulled out the dishwasher in the back of that, covered in mold.
Gosh, I'd hate to even know how long he's been exposed to that.
That is the serious issue. Because he was in a two-story home with all exposed open ceilings, there was no way to actually cover that and block it so that those spores wouldn't get into the house. It creates a most unusual situation. So when we were talking to the insurance company, we basically told them that everybody in the house, until the mold was completely eliminated, would be vulnerable. Well, the insurance company immediately took the move to get them out of the house.
That's the right step.
Yes, it is. Because, number one, the insurance company doesn't want to have the knowledge of that and then be liable for actually keeping the people in the home. They just won't do it. So because of that, believe it or not, all the cabinets in that entire kitchen had to come out. And
Wow.
because the house was built in 2001, all the upper cabinets had to leave as well, simply because we couldn't match anything. And they were really nice, beautiful cherry wood cabinets, and so they weren't going to get matched or anything, so everything came out. And as we pulled it out, we found out when we got in back of that wall that halfway up the wall, the water pipes for the kitchen had come from the upper stairs down through into the kitchen and was leaking it halfway up. And so all the wall, all the way to the left side, and I remember it was a 20-foot long wall of kitchen cabinets to the left side, and it was a 12-foot wall on the right side all the way to the sink and the dishwasher. All of those walls were full of mold, both inside and out. And so when we took the cabinets out, of course, we had to take out all of the granite on his countertops. And we did really well until we got to the corners, and then the granite broke.
But at least you're saving lives because people cannot be exposed to this stuff.
Big time.
Ross, what are some of the medical issues that you see that's common when people are exposed to mold?
Initially, it's unless you are a respiratory person, initially it doesn't really hit you. All you do is feel a little uncomfortable because of the smell and somewhat of the air, and everybody's kind of familiar with how certain smells are uncomfortable. Okay, and that's why in some cases we get called to come to a place just to check it out because something is smelling very odd.
Better be safe.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
How about headaches?
We see that happening, and then we see certain headaches happen as well. But mostly it's you'll find that they'll feel a little stiffness in their lung to begin with because
like
it
hard
is,
to breathe.
Yes. But if you're really healthy, you just don't notice it that much. Mm-hmm. Okay. On the other hand, if you do have respiratory issues, you notice it very quickly.
I want to know, I mean, if people, obviously, if they have respiratory issues, then, it's worse. But how about if you don't? Have you seen people actually die from this?
I have not. And I knock on wood because I just, that I don't think that would be pleasant to be a part of. Have I seen people get a little bit sick? Yes, especially kids and adults that have respiratory issues, especially someone who's just got lung cancer. Oh my gosh, you just can't even be in the same home. You have to leave immediately. Mm-hmm. So there are issues with how you feel, and you know that something's not right, especially.
So don't ignore it.
Exactly, and yet again, sometimes in Arizona, and I hate to say it, but sometimes we are just so unaware.
Right.
Okay.
Which is why we're very thankful for you. And I want you to share with us exactly what you do at Fix Restoration. What other services do you have?
Well, the other service I'll share with you, the home that I was talking about that had the flat roof, that was built in 1945, 46, that house had, because we scratched off the mastic off the walls and sent it to the lab, the report when we got it back not only contained all of the various spores for mold, it also included the fact that the house was full of asbestos.
Oh, wow.
So because of that, in the 4 rooms and the hallway that was affected, because of the way the house was built with block walls, we had to call a company that we've used a few times that actually sandblasts the walls. And they use a special crystal to actually blast the walls with that peels all the mastic off the wall. So they blasted it, got all the mastic off the walls, and then we come back after that and test once again to make sure it's gone. not every time does the first test actually win. There are other times where we have to actually do more.
But you don't stop until it's free.
We don't stop until there is none left.
Right.
And then 9 times out of 10, what we do is we tell the homeowner it would probably be best that we seal those walls with a paint, that we can seal them up so that they're sealed. And then we will recommend to them that they put sheetrock on those walls. So we'll have them fur out the wall, put sheetrock on the walls and the ceilings, so that if there is small bits and pieces of it left, it gets covered up and actually sealed in. Even though sometimes some customers, and I'll say this for the commercial customers, some of those people like the mastic finish on a hard wall, and so they go back and put it on. Of course, it doesn't have any asbestos in it, but they'll still put it on. And as long as they reseal all of that area and paint it out, then it's safe.
When people do suspect that they have mildew or mold in their home and they call you, what does that process look like?
The first thing that we do is we try to find it.
Okay.
Okay, now if they've already found it, that's easy. The second part that's not easy is finding the source that actually created the mold to begin with.
Okay.
So we use a special unit called a FLIR camera, which is an infrared camera, which helps us greatly because you can go along the walls and it sees inside the walls. As a matter of fact, the cameras we use see 5.5 inches inside of a wall. So if you've got 2x6 walls, we see the whole wall inside.
That's why you're called the king of sneaky leaks. And then from there, do you facilitate like helping with the insurance?
Yes.
Because that's a headache for people.
The insurance companies that we work with on a regular basis, they know who we are, they know the work that we do, and because of that, they know that what happens is they're going to get the pictures, they will see the lab reports, they will actually see pieces of the mold if they so desire it.
Okay.
And they will see exactly from the labs the types of mold or asbestos that we're dealing with in a home. Now, what's interesting about that is in 1977, 78, the United States government outlawed the use of asbestos in homes. You see asbestos on popcorn ceilings. We see that a lot. Mm-hmm. You see asbestos, of course, in the sheetrock. We see that a lot. So what happens is that because of the way that we take that information down and show the pictures and stuff like that, we then share all of that with the insurance companies so that they have 100% certainty that we've done all of our homework.
Right. And then from there, you also facilitate referring to people to put the house back in order, like the drywall and things like that.
We do.
Okay.
We will call certain people that we have worked with for many years because our specialty is we love demo. We don't do the rebuild, but because of our relationships over the past 13 years of being in this business, we know the drywall people, and we know the painters, and we know the plumbers.
The ones you'd send to mom.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to forget to share with everyone what other services you have and how to get a hold of you, and really encourage people to please reach out whenever they're suspecting that there's mold, because it can kill you.
Well, the easiest way, obviously the fastest way to get a hold of us is to call us at 602-284-0231. That's the quickest way. Or send us a text at the same number so that we can respond when you know it's the best time for you.
And what other services do you guys offer other than just, with the leaks?
Well, the other services that we offer on top of that is fire. Because we're a hazmat specialty group, the fires that happen, especially inside of kitchens or inside of an area, let's just say that inside of an area where there is a furnace, okay? If there should be so much dust that collects, then it becomes very hot and will actually start on fire. But the most dangerous, of course, is a kitchen fire. Kitchen fires, because depending on where it starts on the stove, inside the oven, depending on what's being cooked and what's around it, again, the vapors and the air becomes very thick, not only with smoke, but for what else also burned at the same time. So we do that as well. Aside from that, obviously, we came to this house a few weeks back. They had been on vacation. Water was pouring out of their front door. And I gotta imagine that that's probably the worst way to come home.
Oh my goodness.
And so the water had run from upstairs in the bathroom from a broken pipe, down the walls. Underneath that bathroom was the downstairs bathroom, and the entire ceiling fell in.
I cannot imagine that. That's awful.
But the water had also creeped inside the walls, all of those walls, and because they had been gone for over 2 weeks and they got back, we had calculated, because of the amount of mold that was growing inside those walls, that it had probably happened a day or two after they left. And so sometimes that happens. And so this will probably be the thing that I share with you that counts the most.
Listen up, travel buddies.
If you're going to take a travel and be gone for more than 7 days out of your house, it's such a simple thing to just turn off the water to your home. A simple thing. And anything that requires water, like your ice machines and stuff like that, just unplug them.
Because even when I travel, I don't do that. So I need to start doing that.
Yes.
That's really good advice. Because sometimes I'm gone for the whole month or longer.
And the other thing that we see when people travel is that what happens is they turn the air conditioning usually up quite a bit so that it doesn't run very much. Or through the winter, of course, your air conditioner is turned off. And wherever your air conditioner is located, there's a pan. And the pan has this pipe that leads all the way to the outside of the house. And what happens is when that line somewhat dries up, other little rodents, especially small mice, fairly large bugs and beetles, will crawl up those pipes.
Oh, boy.
And they plug them up. And what happens when you turn it on? All of a sudden the pan fills up and starts leaking. And so we see that. And so a lot of times I bring a small little PVC cap and I'll show it to them. And I'll say, during the winter, put a cap on that outside line so that you don't get the bugs, you don't get the little mice.
I think we all have to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to bring you back just for tips around that. I mean, how long are you supposed to wait before you get an inspection? Even your water heater.
It usually happens to a person that's healthy. Really, you don't want to have breathe that air any more than 20, 25, 30 days max. And then if you have, it's a good idea to go see your doctor, just to have your lungs checked. But and that's just a good caution to take, that you're aware of the fact that you've got mold in your house, and if you think you've been breathing it for more than 30 days, go see your doctor.
There you go. You guys better take this seriously, and if you suspect that you have any type of leak, sneaky leaks, mold, please call my friend Ross Frazier with Fix Restoration. Thank you, Ross.
You're welcome.
See you
Thank
next time.
See you next time.
Bye.